Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the WrestleMania Backlash review, or as I would call it, WrestleMania rehash, because the matches that we've seen on the card were basically matches that we've seen at WrestleMania. But WrestleMania Backlash was from the Dunkin Donuts Center in Providence, Rhode Island, and the show just ended, and I gotta say, the show wasn't terrible as I was expecting it to be, and I thought it was just a fun, enjoyable show. And I thought some of the matches delivered except for Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin and Omos versus Bobby Lashley. But overall, this was a fun, enjoyable show, although not great. But we saw Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins, of course, Omos versus Bobby Lashley, Edge versus AJ Styles, Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair in a I Quit match for the SmackDown Women's Championship, Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin, and we had the six-man tag team match, the Bloodline, the Usos and Roman Reigns versus RKBro, Riddle and Orton and Drew McIntyre, which is a pointless match because that match could have been on a Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. Overall, WrestleMania Backlash, fun, enjoyable show, and I thought it was better than Night 2 of WrestleMania. But anyways, let's get right into the review. So, WrestleMania Backlash opened up with Cody Rhodes versus Seth Rollins. And this was a very enjoyable match here. Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins going at it again. This is their second match. And their WrestleMania match was very enjoyable. Cody Rhodes coming back to WWE after being away for 6 years. And, just him coming out of WrestleMania, got a huge pop there in Dallas at AT&T Stadium. Just Cody rising up from the stage during his entrance was awesome. He got a whole lot of pyro there. Just a very good moment that was. But here they delivered again in this match. So Rollins came out. He was wearing the same attire that he wore at WrestleMania going into his match with Cody. So then we had Cody end up coming out. He had all the pyro going off. And so the match started off with Rollins and Cody. They were looking to lock up, to which they did. And both guys end up trading hammerlocks. Rhodes end up flipping out of Rollins' hammerlock. Cody got control of Rollins' arm, and he backed Rollins into the corner. Rollins then turned it around on Cody and kicked Cody in the gut. Rollins ended up charging at Cody, but Cody ended up evading, so Cody ended up running into a cradle for a pin attempt by Rollins, and Cody was able to kick out. Rollins then ended up slapping Cody in the face, to which Cody got very pissed off. He was fired up, and he started throwing a bunch of punches at Rollins. He sent Rollins retreating out to the floor. Cody ended up running Rollins back into the ring, and Rollins then ended up retaking control of the match. He ended up kneeing Cody off of the ring apron down to the floor. And at this point, we had Cody end up charging after Rollins on the floor, and Cody ended up running to a huge clothesline delivered by Rollins, to which that clothesline turn Cody inside out on the floor. So both guys were back in the ring. Rollins ended up grounding Cody with some punches, and he tried to work on Cody's neck. Cody then ended up getting back up to his feet. He ended up hitting a drop-down uppercut to Rollins. So Cody ended up powering up, and he ended up powering up Rollins for a delayed suplex. And that brought Rollins down on his face. Cody then ended up going for the disaster kick, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Rollins kicked out. Rollins was trying to beg Cody off, but Cody ended up outsmarting Rollins, and he ended up going for a springboard, to which Rollins ended up pushing Cody over the top rope out to the floor. Rollins then ended up throwing Cody into the barricade, and Rollins ended up slamming Cody's head on the commentary table. Rollins then ended up rolling Cody back into the ring, started throwing some punches at Cody. Cody ended up trying to fire up, but Rollins ended up firing back at him. Rollins then ended up whipping Cody, sending him first into the turnbuckle, started choking Cody over the second rope. So Rollins ended up bringing Cody back to the center of the ring. He ended up hitting some kicks, and Rollins then ended up going for a chin lock on Cody. Cody ended up powering up to his feet. He ended up breaking the chin lock. Rollins ended up maintaining control of the match because he delivered a headbutt to Cody. Cody ended up blocking a punch from Rollins and started firing back at him. So Cody was going for a sunset flip, which got reversed by Rollins, but he couldn't get the pin. So Rollins went up to the top rope. Cody ended up going up to meet Rollins. So they both were on the top rope. Cody ended up bringing Rollins down with a superplex from the second rope, which was cool. So Rollins ended up getting up, and Cody was right behind Rollins. Then they started trading strikes in the center of the ring. Cody ended up hitting a power slam to Rollins, to which after he hit the power slam, he then clotheslined Rollins over the top rope, to which Rollins went out to the floor. Cody ended up running up the corner, and he was going for a dive to the outside, and he ended up missing that because Rollins was already back in the ring. So Rollins was caught with a Cody cutter because Cody ended up hitting the cutter on Rollins, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Rollins kicked out too. Rollins ended up going for a pedigree, but Cody ended up escaping out of that. Rollins then ended up managing to hit a super kick to Cody, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Cody ended up kicking out too. Rollins then ended up lining up Cody for the stomp, to which Cody ended up avoiding that. He was looking to go for the crossroads, but Rollins ended up escaping out of that. Cody went up to the top rope, and Rollins caught Cody with a boot to his midsection. And it led to Rollins hitting the Falcon Arrow on Cody, so Cody ended up kicking out too. Rollins ended up pulling Cody to his feet. Cody ended up escaping, but springboarded right into position for Rollins to hit the buckle bomb. And Rollins ended up following it up with a frog splash on Cody. He ended up going for the cover, to which Cody kicked out too. And we had, at one point, Rollins ended up rolling to the outside. Cody ended up going after Rollins, and he ended up battering Rollins against the commentary table. And there was a point where Cody Rhodes ended up going up to the top rope, and Rollins ended up meeting Cody at the top, and Rollins nailed a superplex to Cody, and Rollins tried to follow it up with a Falcon Arrow, but Rhodes ended up catching him with the crossroads, and Cody ended up going for the cover, and Rollins got his foot on the bottom rope to break up the pin, to which I thought that was pretty cool there, where Rollins delivering the superplex to Cody, and was trying to go for the Falcon Arrow, but Cody ended up catching him with the Crossroads. Thought that was a pretty cool spot there in the match. So Cody ended up rolling Rollins back into the ring. He climbed up to the top rope. Cody ended up going for the moonsault, but Rollins, wasn't there. So Rollins ended up hitting the pedigree on Cody, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Rhodes ended up kicking out. So at the end of the match, Rollins ended up trying a roll-up on Cody because he was holding Cody's tights. Cody ended up reversing it, and he ended up grabbing a hold of Rollins' tights, and there you go. Cody ended up winning the match there, holding on to Rollins' tights. So there you go. And Rollins was shocked. He was yelling at the referee, and pretty much that was that. That was the match. But overall, this was a very enjoyable match between Cody and Seth Rollins. Their match at WrestleMania was good. And this match here tonight was very good also. Very enjoyable. Just these two guys gave it all they got in the match. But very good match. Very enjoyable. And then we had Omos versus Bobby Lashley. This match was boring, in my opinion. This was just as boring as their WrestleMania match. So, Omos is now being introduced as the Nigerian Giant. Really? They're calling him the Nigerian Giant. He's a Great Khali 2.0. We all know that. So Omos came out first along with MVP, and then Bobby Lashley made his way out. Match started. Bobby Lashley ended up using his speed to land a few shots at Omos. Omos grabbed Lashley by the throat, and Lashley fired back with some punches to Omos. He backed Omos against the ropes. MVP distracted Bobby Lashley from the ring apron, to which Omos took control, and Omos delivered a big boot to Bobby Lashley, to which then Omos landed a back elbow in the corner to Lashley. He did some running splashes into the corner. Omos then ended up bringing Lashley back to the center of the ring, and he grounded Lashley with a neck hold. Lashley ended up fighting to his feet, but Omos just powered Lashley over the top rope out to the floor. It looked like during this match that Lashley was trying to have Omos get some more offense on him. So Omos was waiting in the ring as the referee was counting for Bobby Lashley to get back into the ring. Lashley ended up beating the ref's count. So Omos ended up hitting the snake eyes on Lashley and delivered another boot. Omos then choked Lashley over the second rope as MVP was taunting Lashley from ringside. Omos picked up Lashley. Lashley ended up escaping, ended up creating some space with some back elbows to Omos. Lashley at this point jumped on Omos's back and he grabbed a sleeper hold, to which Omos powered Lashley off of him. Lashley ended up recovering with a spear to Omos, and he ended up hitting another spear on Omos in the corner. Lashley ended up hitting a clothesline and tied up Omos in the ropes. So Lashley was just firing away with punches to Omos as Omos was tied up in the ropes. So the referee was calling off Lashley, and MVP freed Omos from being tied up in the ropes. Lashley then ended up going to the outside, and he tried to put the hurt lock on MVP. But Omos reached over, and he ended up breaking up the hurt lock that was locked in almost on MVP from Lashley. Lashley got back into the ring, ended up hitting the flatliner on Omos, to which Omos at this point was down on one knee. Lashley ended up going for the hurt lock on Omos, and he got it locked in on Omos. Omos ended up recovering and backed Lashley into the corner to break up the Hurt Lock. So Omos fired away at Lashley with some elbows and chops in the corner. Omos ended up charging into boots by Lashley, and Lashley ended up ramming Omos headfirst into the turnbuckle. So Omos ended up charging into the corner. He ended up spearing Lashley. Lashley ended up pulling Omos to the center of the ring, and it looked like Lashley was going to try to hit a suplex on Omos, but Omos ended up punching his way out of being suplexed by Bobby Lashley. Omos ended up coming off the ropes, and Lashley ended up picking up Omos, and he delivered a spine buster. Lashley ended up going for a spear, but he ran into a knee by Omos, to which Omos threw Lashley through the turnbuckles to the ring post. So MVP then ended up hitting Lashley with his cane, and that led to Omos following it up with a slam on Bobby Lashley. So there you go. Omos ended up winning the match. Overall, match was a snooze. Match was boring. Omos is terrible in the ring. We all know that. But this was just as bad as their WrestleMania match. What do you expect? I hope this is it for Omos and Bobby Lashley. I don't want to see another match between these two. I don't. I hope this is over. If this is not over, we're going to get a third match between them. That's going to be just as boring. And then we had a promo of Hell in a Cell, to which Hell in a Cell is going to be on June 5th. And it's going to be in Chicago. So expect Hell in a Cell, next month on June 5th. And then we had AJ Styles versus Edge, which this was a good match. Their match at WrestleMania was good, but the pacing of the match was very slow. And I thought this match was better than their WrestleMania match, even though, like I said, the match at WrestleMania was good. And Edge, him being a heel, was just great. And, him and Damian Priest as Judgment Day, it's getting very interesting where this is headed with, Judgment Day, which at the end of this match, I'll get to explaining because we have a new member for Judgment Day along with Edge and Damian Priest, to which Damian Priest was barred from ringside for the match. So Edge ended up coming out first, and then Styles. The match ended up starting. Both Styles and Edge charged at each other. Styles ended up stomping down on Edge in the corner. He then delivered a drop kick to Edge. Styles then took Edge to the outside and slammed him into the barricade. After that, Styles ended up driving Edge face first into the commentary table. Styles rolled Edge back into the ring, and Edge just rolled right back out. So Styles ended up catching Edge with a drop kick to the bottom rope. Styles ended up following that up with a moonsault to Edge on the floor, which looked cool. Styles rolled Edge back into the ring. He was signaling to hit the phenomenal forearm, but Edge ended up cutting Styles off with a boot, and he ended up throwing Styles under the turnbuckle into the ring post. So Edge ended up going after Styles' shoulder, to which him and Damian Priest, if you remember, on Monday Night Raw, he ended up attacking. Both guys ended up attacking Styles. Edge ended up catapulting Styles from the floor into the ring post. He then slammed Styles' arm on the ring step and rolled Styles back into the ring. So Edge was just focusing on Styles' shoulder. Styles then ended up backing Edge into a corner to break up the hold, and Edge ended up dropping Styles over the top rope. So we had Styles end up missing a clothesline, and both Styles and Edge end up trying to do a crossbody, and they both collided in the middle of the ring. So Styles was back on his feet. He ended up clotheslining Edge, a couple of times. Styles then ended up pinning a running forearm in the corner and planted Edge with a slam. And he ended up going for the cover, to which Edge ended up kicking out. Styles then ended up putting Edge on the top rope. He was firing away with some punches at Edge. Styles ended up climbing up. He delivered a Hurricanrana from the top rope to Edge. He ended up going for the cover, to which Edge ended up kicking out too. So Styles then signaled to hit the Styles Clash. Edge ended up escaping out of that, but Styles ended up hitting the Ushigoroshi on Edge instead, and he ended up going for the cover. Edge kicked out. Edge then ended up attacking Styles' leg to take control of the match, and he ended up hitting a reverse DDT. Edge then ended up trying to lock on a crossface on Styles, but Styles managed to escape that and locked in the calf crusher on Edge. Edge then ended up slamming the back of Styles' head off of the mat, and that didn't do nothing for Styles to break up the calf crusher. He still had the calf crusher locked in on Edge. So Edge reached the bottom rope, and he broke the hold. He broke the calf crusher. Styles ended up pulling Edge out of the corner with a German suplex. So Edge ended up pulling off the middle turnbuckle. Edge ended up missing a spear to Styles, and he ended up running right into the exposed turnbuckle. And we had Styles end up going for the cover, to which Edge ended up kicking out. Edge ended up hitting a spear to Styles, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Styles kicked out too. Edge ended up trying to hit the spear again, but Styles ended up delivering a knee strike to Edge. And then Styles ended up hitting the Styles Clash to Edge, which he went for the cover. Edge kicked out at 2. So Styles ended up going up to the top rope, and Damian Priest walked down the ramp. And Priest ended up pointing out that he's not at ringside. And Finn Balor was right behind Damian Priest. So Balor and Priest were brawling, and then a masked individual pulled Styles off the top rope, and Edge ended up locking on the crossface on Styles, and to which Edge then turned it into a sleeper hold. So Edge ended up locking in the sleeper hold tight on Styles. Styles passed out. So there you go. Edge ended up winning the match. So then this masked individual stepped into the ring. And this individual ended up kneeling at Edge. So this individual unmasked, and this individual was revealed to be RHEA Ripley. So RHEA Ripley revealed herself as this individual, and she now has darker hair. She darkened her hair color, and this is awesome for RHEA Ripley. Obviously, we all predicted that RHEA Ripley was going to join Edge in Judgment Day. So now we have RHEA Ripley, Edge, and Damian Priest as part of Judgment Day. And I think this is going to benefit RHEA Ripley. And I just hope WWE does right with Judgment Day, with Edge, Damian Priest, and RHEA Ripley. Like I said, this is going to benefit RHEA Ripley. I feel like this is the best thing for RHEA Ripley, from just her going in to be in tag teams with Nikki ASH, and Nikki turning on RHEA Ripley. She went from Nikki to Liv Morgan, and then she ended up turning heel on Liv Morgan. So this is the best thing for Rhea Ripley. So we now have a contender to take the title from Bianca for this year. And I see that possibly happening at SummerSlam. I think at SummerSlam, it's going to be Bianca Belair versus Rhea Ripley for the Raw Women's Championship. So I expect that to happen. That's your SummerSlam match for the Raw Women's Championship on the line. I sense WWE going that route. So now all we need for Judgment Day is for Ciampa to be the next member for Judgment Day. So, and then we'll have a awesome stable in Judgment Day with Rhea Ripley, Damian Priest, Edge, and Ciampa. But like I said, hopefully he's next. Hopefully Ciampa is a part of Judgment Day. But overall, good match from Styles and Edge. Like I said, I thought it was better than their WrestleMania match, even though their match at WrestleMania was good, aside from the slow pacing of that match at WrestleMania. And then we had the I Quit match. SmackDown Women's Championship on the line. Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair. Ronda Rousey and Charlotte's feud this year. This has been the worst feud of the year in my opinion. Their match at WrestleMania was absolutely boring. And I gotta say, I was expecting this match to be terrible, to be just the same as their WrestleMania match, quality-wise. But in my opinion, this was a surprisingly decent match. So we had Ronda Rousey end up coming out first, and then Charlotte. Match started off with Charlotte going for a big boot to Ronda Rousey, but she ended up missing. Ronda ended up grabbing a waist lock, but Charlotte ended up elbowing out of that. Ronda took control of the match, started doing some judo throws on Charlotte. Charlotte ended up catching Ronda with a clothesline to take advantage of the match. Charlotte started talking trash at Ronda, but Ronda ended up firing back. She hoisted Charlotte on her shoulders. Charlotte ended up slipping out the back of Ronda's shoulders and hit a suplex, a German suplex, to which Ronda landed on her neck. So Ronda ended up coming back up, ended up taking down Charlotte with an armbar. So Charlotte then ended up ramming Ronda into the barricade on the outside because both women end up rolling out of the ring. So Charlotte ended up following it up with some chops. Charlotte then ended up trying to send Ronda into the ring post, but Ronda reversed it, and Charlotte ended up going into the ring post. Ronda then ended up throwing Charlotte into the timekeeper's area, and Charlotte then caught Ronda coming in with a boot to her face. So Charlotte ended up wanting the referee to ask Ronda if she wants to quit, because through the match, whenever there was a submission being done, or Charlotte or Ronda were on the floor in pain, the referee had the mic in hand, so they would say, "I quit." So Charlotte wanted the ref to ask Ronda if she wanted to quit, to which Ronda ended up saying no. Charlotte ended up getting the kendo stick from under the ring, and she ended up missing. Ronda ended up catching the stick. So Charlotte ended up retreating back to the ring, and she went out to the other side of the ring as Ronda was pursuing Charlotte all the way up the ramp. Charlotte then ended up heading backstage, and she came back out holding 2 kendo sticks. So both Charlotte and Ronda ended up squaring up on the stage, and Ronda had the kendo stick. Charlotte, of course, had 2. So Charlotte ended up knocking the kendo stick out of Ronda's hands. And Ronda now had both kendo sticks in hand. Because she ended up flipping Charlotte down the ramp, down the aisle. So, like I said, Ronda had both sticks in hand, and she ended up just battering Charlotte with the kendo sticks all the way down the ramp, back to ringside. So, Charlotte was asked if she wanted to quit, and she said no. So, both women went back to the ring. Ronda was still beating Charlotte with the kendo sticks. Charlotte rolled out of the ring. She grabbed a camera from the camera guy. She threw it at Ronda, and it caused Ronda to drop the kendo sticks. But Ronda started pounding on Charlotte with some punches, and it spilled over the barricade. They went over the barricade into the crowd. Charlotte ended up throwing Ronda into a wall on the edge of the floor. And Charlotte ended up taking Ronda up the stairs, and they went through the fans, and she ended up trying to choke her out using the railing of, where the crowd was sitting, the stairs. So Ronda refused to quit. Charlotte ended up giving up on the hold. Charlotte then ended up pitching Ronda down the stairs and back to the floor. She then slapped Ronda in the face, and Charlotte ended up grabbing a chair. Charlotte then ended up swinging the chair, but Ronda blocked it, and Charlotte ended up running back to ringside. Ronda followed with a chair in hand, and Charlotte then ended up kicking the chair out of Ronda's hands as she ended up coming back over the barricade. And Charlotte ended up slamming her against the commentary table. Charlotte then delivered a powerbomb to Ronda against the barricade. So the referee ended up asking Ronda if she will quit, to which Ronda said no. So Charlotte then ended up trash talking to Ronda, and she ended up shoving Ronda's face, and that fired her up. Ronda ended up poisoning up Charlotte, but Charlotte ended up raking her eyes and shoved Ronda into the ring post. So Charlotte climbed up to the top rope. Looked like she was going to hit that awful looking moonsault that we all hate that when Charlotte does. Thank God we didn't see the moonsault here from Charlotte in the match. So Ronda cut her off. Charlotte was hanging upside down, and Ronda locked on the armbar while she was hanging upside down, to which Charlotte was screaming in pain. So Charlotte didn't want to quit, and both women ended up slipping off the top down to the floor. Charlotte then ended up getting a chair. She ended up going after Ronda's hip, and Ronda wouldn't quit. Charlotte ended up sending Ronda back into the ring along with the chair. And Charlotte then ended up hitting natural selection to Ronda on the chair. So Charlotte locked on the figure eight. The referee was asking Ronda if she wants to quit, to which Ronda said no. So Ronda then reached for the chair, and she used it to break up the figure eight. She ended up hitting Charlotte with it. Charlotte opened the chair. She ended up set it up. She called over the ref, and Charlotte spoke into the mic. She ended up telling Ronda, "This is your last chance. Happy Mother's Day." Ronda then ended up reaching through the chair, locked on the armbar on Charlotte in the chair, and Charlotte ended up saying, I quit. So because of that, Ronda Rousey wins the match, and Ronda is the new SmackDown Women's Champion. So there you go. Ronda ended up heading to the back. Charlotte was in the ring crying, and that was that. But the reason why Charlotte end up losing the title here is because I heard her and Andrade are getting married, so that's why WWE written off Charlotte right here off of television. So Charlotte and Andrade are going to be getting married. But overall, this was not bad as I was expecting. It was a surprisingly decent match. Wasn't expecting this match to be decent. But, wow, a Charlotte Flair match that's actually decent. And then we had this boring match. Happy Corbin versus Madcap Moss. Do you all care about Corbin and Moss's feud? I don't. This match was absolutely boring. Match started off with a lockup on Corbin and Moss. Corbin ended up going with a kick to the leg of Moss. Moss fired back with a shoulder tackle, and he delivered a hip toss to Corbin. Corbin caught Moss with a choke slam, which slowed down Moss. Corbin then ended up booting Moss out of the ring. Corbin drove Moss into the ring post, started pounding Moss against the barricade. Corbin ended up sending Moss back to the ring, started jawing at the fans. Moss tried to fight up, but ran into a back elbow from Corbin, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Moss kicked out at 2. Corbin then ended up whipping Moss hard into the turnbuckle, and he ended up just dropping some elbows on Moss, started grounding him with a head and arm choke. So Corbin ended up whipping Moss into the corner, and he followed up with a running clothesline, to which Corbin ended up going for the cover. Moss kicked out at 2. Corbin then ended up slamming down Moss and followed up with a senton, and he went for another cover, to which Moss kicked out at 2. So we had Moss end up doing a shoulder tackle to Corbin, to which he sent Corbin out of the ring. Moss ended up slamming Corbin into the ring post. So both guys went back to the ring. Moss ended up driving his shoulder into Corbin in the corner, but he ended up running into a knee from Corbin. So Moss recovered. He ended up doing a fallaway slam on Corbin, to which he went for the cover, and Corbin ended up kicking out at 2. So at the end of the match, we had Corbin end up hitting a running splash in the corner to Moss. Corbin ended up going for a second running splash, but Moss ended up going for a sunset flip. And there you go. Madcap Moss ended up winning the match. Overall, very boring match. This match could have took place on a random edition of SmackDown. Absolutely boring. I hope this is the last match that we have with Corbin and Moss. I don't want to see any more matches with Corbin and Moss. I don't. And then after this match, we got informed by Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton ended up informing us that Charlotte is injured, and she suffered a fractured radius in the I Quit match. So that is their way of writing Charlotte off of television. So her and Andrade could get married. So yeah, the Queen needs a vacation. I'm like, good, we don't have to see Charlotte on TV. So there you go. One way to write Charlotte off of television. Main event. The 6-man tag. RKBro, Riddle and Orton, and Drew McIntyre versus the Bloodline. And this was a decent match, but absolutely pointless on paper, because WWE was originally going to do a unification match where they were going to unify the Raw and SmackDown tag team titles. We only need one set of tag team titles. And WWE stupidly canceled the match. That's the worst creative decision that they've done all year. And WWE stated, oh, we were never going to do the unification match and unify the tag team titles. Don't I remember Paul Heyman saying to the Usos to go to Monday Night Raw and unify the Raw tag team titles? WWE is bullshitting all of you. They had the unification match planned for the unification tag team titles. And they just canceled it like that. So we went from a original plan for the unification for the tag team titles. They canceled that to just having a random, pointless 6-man tag that could have been seen on Monday Night Raw or SmackDown. This match did not need to be on the show. But anyways, it was a surprisingly decent 6-man tag. So we had Randy Orton and Jimmy Uso end up starting off the match. Jimmy backed Orton into the corner, started landing a few strikes at Orton. Orton ended up doing a European uppercut to Jimmy, and he tagged in the Riddle. Jimmy ended up recovering to whip Riddle into the corner. Jimmy then ended up laying another whip into Riddle, which Riddle ended up reversing, and he tagged in McIntyre. McIntyre then ended up delivering some chops to Jimmy in the corner. He then went for a suplex on Jimmy, and Jimmy ended up retreating to his corner. McIntyre ended up wanting Reigns to tag in. So Reigns ended up tagging into the match. Reigns then circled McIntyre for a moment, and then went and tagged in Jay. So Jay ended up coming in. Jay ended up running right into a boot by McIntyre. McIntyre ended up sending Jay across the ring with a suplex, with an overhead suplex, and then he tagged back in Riddle. Riddle then delivered a gut-wrench suplex on Jay, and Jimmy ended up managing to make a blind tag, and he cut off Riddle with a kick to the back of his head. Jimmy then ended up choking Riddle across the second rope. He tagged back in Jimmy, and so the Usos ended up double teaming on Riddle. Jay slammed Riddle and choked him on the bottom rope as Jimmy ended up getting a cheap shot on Riddle. Jimmy tagged in, and they ended up doing a sidewalk slam. The Usos hit a sidewalk slam and elbow from the second rope onto Riddle, to which Jimmy ended up going for the cover, and Riddle kicked out at 2. Reigns was ready to tag in, and Reigns ended up slamming down Riddle by his hair. Reigns ended up slamming Riddle into the turnbuckle, and he was just throwing punches in the corner to Riddle. Riddle tried to fight back, but Reigns cut off Riddle and delivered a back elbow. Reigns ended up playing Riddle with, rock bottom, and he ended up going for the cover, to which Riddle kicked out at 2. Reigns tagged in Jimmy. Jimmy ended up chopping Riddle in the corner. He ended up missing a splash in the corner, and Riddle started to crawl to make the tag. But Jay tagged in and stopped Riddle from tagging in. Jay ended up throwing Riddle into the ring post, and he ended up kicking Orton. Jay charged at Riddle, but ran into a knee from Riddle, to which Jay ended up falling out of the ring. Reigns ended up rolling him into the ring to make the tag. And when he did that, he realized that Riddle tagged in McIntyre. So Reigns and McIntyre were in the ring, and they were trading punches. Reigns whipped McIntyre to the corner. McIntyre fired out of the corner and delivered a clothesline to Reigns, to which, after the clothesline, McIntyre followed that up with an overhead throw to Reigns, and then he hit Reigns with the neck breaker. And McIntyre was lining up to hit the Claymore to Reigns, but the Usos ended up distracting him, and Reigns then delivered a Superman punch to McIntyre, to which McIntyre ended up going out of the ring. Reigns followed up, ended up slamming McIntyre against the barricade. So they went back to the ring. Reigns ended up hitting a kick to McIntyre's head, and Reigns clotheslined McIntyre in the corner. Reigns came off the ropes and delivered a leaping clothesline. Reigns got his belts from Paul Heyman, held them up. He was shown off to the crowd. He gave the titles back to Paul Heyman and took a cheap shot at Riddle. Reigns ended up drawing at Orton, and he turned it around right into a Claymore from McIntyre, to which McIntyre ended up making the tag to Orton, and Jimmy ended up coming in. So Orton ended up taking down Jimmy and Jay with some power slams. Orton delivered a draping DDT on Jimmy. Orton set up for the RKO. Jay ran in, and Orton ended up sending Jay over the top rope. Reigns ended up trying to attack Orton, but Reigns ended up running right into an RKO by Orton. Jimmy ended up hitting the super kick, and then Orton ended up hitting the RKO on Jimmy. So Orton ended up going for the cover, to which Jay broke up the pin. So at the end of the match, Riddle and Jay were fighting back into the ring. Jay delivered a super kick to Riddle. He then climbed up to the top rope. Riddle ended up running up the corner. He ended up bringing Jay down with the RKO, which looked awesome. And then Reigns ended up following up with a spear. He hit the spear on Riddle, and he ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Roman Reigns and the Usos, the Bloodline, ended up winning the match. So on replay, they showed that Reigns snuck in a tag while Jay was on the top rope. So that was how Reigns ended up hitting the spear to Riddle. But overall, this was a decent six-man tag, but on paper, pointless because WWE was like, oh, we're going to give you all of you a unification tag team match and we're going to unify the tag team titles. Only for them not to say that it wasn't in the plans. But you had Paul Heyman, like I said, you had Paul Heyman say to the Usos to go to Monday Night Raw and unify the titles. So WWE was just bullshitting all of us with that. In doing this originally unification tag team match. So we went from that being canceled to a six-man tag, which, like I said, this match could have been on a random edition of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. This match did not deserve to be on the show. But like I said, it was a decent match. So that was how WrestleMania Backlash ended. But overall, this was a surprisingly fun, enjoyable show. Not great, and it wasn't terrible as I was expecting it to be. But anyways, that's it for my review of WrestleMania Backlash. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I will see you all tomorrow night for Monday Night Raw. So, see you all later.